founders are from more of a technology field, really kind of approached it from, there's not that great a tech within the investment management world or within the RIA world. How can we apply, kind of the things that we know from our tech background to basically apply that to wealth management, apply that to an RIA model? How can we leverage that technology to make advisors' life easier so that they can provide a magical client experience? So that's the ethos of the firm. It's really technology driven.
Awesome. Well, this is the official episode 1 of Building Better Portfolios. So excited to have Eric Flynn join us today as our inaugural guest on the podcast. I'm Paisley Nardini, joined by my co-host Josh Flade. And again, building better portfolios, and our tagline is, and also building better lives. So a lot of our conversation today is going to naturally weave from kind of the structured world we all live in finance, investment management, wealth management, but we also want to make this personal. We want to learn a little bit about Eric, and we want to talk about compound planning, which has grown significantly. We'll come back to that because we have a lot of questions. But Eric Flynn is the head of wealth management for Compound Planning, an up-and-coming growing advisory firm that kind of blends planning as well as investment management. And Eric does a lot even outside of his day job, which is actually how Josh and myself got connected to Eric. Eric is kind of like my boss. So I volunteered for the CFA Society where I live, and all of the CFA societies on the western half of the US roll up to Eric. So Eric gets in there, he gets to see what's going on in all the societies, gets to see what's going on in the Institute as well. So we'll ask you a little bit about that. But Eric, you're joining us from Iowa today, is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. Out in Iowa today. So travel a lot for work, but traveling through Iowa today. But yeah.
Actually, funny story. Speaking of traveling, neither Eric nor I live in New York City, and a month and a half ago,
CFA small world story.
Yeah. Speaking of small world, like a month and a half ago, Eric and I were both having lunch in New York City. And we were sitting 5 feet from each other. And both of us were like, what are you doing here? So the world is small. Yeah. Don't burn any bridges. And it's wonderful because we have this amazing community. So thanks again, Eric, for joining us.
So the funny part about that whole story is I was just telling the story about how small the CFA world was and how connected it is across the entire country. And she's like, is it really that connected? And then 30 seconds later, you sit down and it was like, oh, I know her. And so that connected the entire story. And she looked at me, she's like, okay, now
I get it. Yeah, you weren't lying.
Yeah, you weren't just kidding.
Yeah. So maybe we'll start. If you wouldn't mind just sharing like a little bit of background on this role you have for like the Western regional societies, and like why do you spend all this time outside of your busy day job like volunteering for the CFA societies?
Sure, happy to talk. That's my other full-time job.
Yeah.
Is the role as PCR, which is President's Council Representative, as Paisley said, represent the 16 Western Region societies to the Board of Governors from the CFA Institute. But the CFA, when I was going through my whole career building and kind of how I wanted to progress in my career, looked around, took the CFA, wanted to really expand my knowledge in the financial industry, financial services, and investment management. Knew CFA was going to be a good choice for me, and went through the whole program. Obviously learned a lot, but what I didn't realize I was getting was the community on the back end of what the CFA provides. So joined my local society, really met a great network of people, and then through that process, the CFA has given me so much. So the reason that I continue to give back is all that it's given to me. So all the doors that it's opened, all the people that I've met, I continue to meet all the great people, including Josh and Paisley, as I've done my role and as I've volunteered through all the different roles within my local society as well as through the PCR role now. So the reason that I keep staying involved is I keep meeting great people. It keeps expanding my network. It's given me so much. I keep wanting to give back and give more because it's just such a great network, such a good group of people.
I say the exact same thing when people ask me that question. And I think it's also important too, like if anybody's listening that has sat for the CFA and has the designation or any other, professional designation, you put in all the time and energy and resources, likely took away time from yourself, from family, to get something out of it, for it to pay dividends down the road. The volunteering aspect just opens all of these doors. I mean, the reason we launched this podcast is like Josh and I were at the Western Regional Conference in Las Vegas, and we're like, hanging out, chatting, let's start a podcast. So like case in point is it's a small community that continues to grow, and it's so approachable, and it's like pays so many dividends. So I love that.
Yeah, and there's
I
so
think
much,
that's
yeah, so much mentorship. So many people want to give back, so it's such a good network. Yeah, you can find anybody in any walk of life, any career segment within the financial services industry, financial investment industry. So it's such good mentorship. Everybody wants to give back. Everybody wants to help. That's what gets me so passionate and excited about it, and want to volunteer because obviously I have a very busy day job, and then this is on top of that, volunteering for that as well. So yeah, happy to give the time, happy to give back as well. Sorry, Josh, I cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. And that's what I always tell people is that you get out of things what you put into it. So whether it's the CFA and volunteering at the CFA Society or some other designation or organization or whatever it may be, like that, there's just a great life lesson I think in that. And it is cool that all three of us have volunteered and been presidents of our various chapters. And obviously, Eric, now you're representing the whole Western region, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for your service.
Yes, sometimes it's a bit of a thankless job.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
but no, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting to interact with the Board of Governors now and all the CFA Institute staff, they're all fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
Love that. Maybe a little segue then. I'm sure a lot of people aren't aware of all that work that you do for the CFA Society, but would love to also just get personal out of the gate. Like, what's something that many people maybe don't know about you, like a fun fact, an interesting hobby, whether it's how you spend your time or what your interests are? We always like to open with that.
Yeah, so growing up in Montana, most of my hobbies are outdoor. So yeah, all the hunting, fishing, outdoors, that's where I like to spend my time. But I don't think most people know. I mean, I'm a good golfer, like to ski, all those kind of things. But my family and I, we're big Disney people too. So I do like to spend a little time at Disney. We have a Disney Vacation Club membership, so about every 18 months we try to go visit Mickey with the family. So that's always a tidbit that yeah, not many people would know that.
You left your mouse ears at home, I take it.
I did leave the mouse ears at home. Yeah.
Well, hit me up next
Along with
time
the
you're
rest of
down
my
here.
hair,
We can
apparently. Yeah.
meet up for coffee.
Yeah.
So maybe then let's get into the day job stuff. So part of what I wanted to ask is kind of like, what makes you tick? What are you passionate about? And I find that typically when we ask that question, it relates to our industry, and that's why you've entered the industry and why you continue to stay here and build a business, especially now with Compound. But maybe a little bit of like the genesis behind like why this industry drew you in and like what you're most excited about.
Yeah, similar to a lot of the CFA things. If you can't tell, I like to help people. So the reason that I kind of gave up the ranching job and initially started in accounting. So I mean, roll it way back in my first career, I got a master's in accounting, got my CPA. I was like, this is how I want to go help people. Is financial education. I thought it was going to be through the CPA thing. I didn't realize. I went to work for Arthur Andersen. I was like, wow, I made it to Arthur Andersen. This is great. Didn't realize I got on the Andersen Titanic after it hit the iceberg. So Andersen blew up, and I decided I was like, well, maybe the CPA world's not for me. But where else can I go and help people where I can provide a service for them? Take some weight off their plate. And provide a significant service. So obviously, financial services was kind of an easy transition at that point. So growing up. That's just kind of my way. I like to help people. I like to feel like I'm providing some value to them. That was a nice segue into financial services. Doing taxes at Andersen, providing a service, but people usually aren't very happy when they come and talk to you about paying their taxes. So I was like, well, maybe that wasn't the right career path for me anyway. Now going into financial planning and investment management, yeah, obviously you can provide a lot of value for people in their lives, take that financial burden off their plate, really help them achieve their goals, and that was kind of what got me passionate and excited about being in the industry.
What a great first guest, Josh. I mean, like, we're talking about building better portfolios and building better lives. And like, Eric's he's out there. He's building better lives one day at a time. We didn't pay him to say that.
Yeah. And then as my career has progressed, I don't spend as much time on the client side anymore. Now it's helping advisors, how can I mentor advisors to help get their career started? And that's kind of what my role at Compound is now, is kind of overseeing the advisory teams. How can I help them grow? How can I help mentor them? How can we make sure that they're able to achieve what they want to achieve, and make sure we're building the platform and the portfolios and all the support things that they need to be able to serve their clients and grow. So that's kind of the full circle mentality of kind of growing from an individual practitioner into management, into leadership, and now trying to grow a firm that is achieving all those things in one place.
Yeah, that was actually, you took my next question away from me. You read the room. I love that. IQ and EQ. But my next question was going to be around your role, which you just alluded to, and then maybe digging a layer deeper, specific to Compound. Like, there's a lot I want to unpack here. I want to unpack like where you guys are at, where you're looking to go, how you've grown tremendously thus far. And so maybe just kind of starting with, how is Compound adding value to individual lives? How is Compound's advisor network supporting individuals? Like, what is your guys' like mission statement?
Yeah, the ethos of the firm is really technology driven. So the two founders are from more of a technology field, really kind of approached it from, there's not that great a tech within the, the investment management world or within the RIA world. How can we apply, kind of the things that we know from our tech background to basically apply that to wealth management, apply that to an RIA model? How can we leverage that technology to make advisors' life easier so that they can provide a magical client experience? So that's the ethos of the firm. It's really technology driven. How can we build a better platform, a more integrated platform that makes an advisor's life super easy, really integrates the tech so that the clients have an easy way to log in, easy way to see all their investments, all their portfolios, all their financial planning, everything that we're trying to do for them. So really trying to integrate that, make technology kind of the impetus that brings everybody together. So really building that platform, and it's really resonated well. So the firm's not that old. We're past 50 advisors based on our last announcement. I think we've got a few more than that. We're probably in our next announcement we'll cross 4 billion in assets under management. So we're growing very quickly. It's resonating very well with our advisors. They want to be on the platform. We're leveraging technology. We're really thinking about how do we build a firm for the future. How do we make sure we're integrating the technology. Obviously, technology is never going to replace a human in our industry, because people really want that touch, that feel, that human interaction. But at the same time, there's so many things you can do with technology to just make advisors more efficient, make their life easier. Instead of having to log into 6 or 8 different systems to get all their information, we're trying to do it through one. We're trying to make sure that we're using AI and leveraging AI to gather all that information from all your emails and all your client service associate emails and all the investment team's emails, and that it's all in one place, so you don't have to track down 10 people when you're going to meet with a client to gather all the information and all the things that you need to meet with that client and meet their needs. So that's the whole ethos of the firm, is leverage technology appropriately, make advisors' life easy so that they have the relationship with the client and can do the things that they need to do, but let the technology do the hard work behind the scenes to make their life easy.
And a big part of your role is going out and finding those advisors that are attracted to that type of value add, technology driven approach. And so like you're out there meeting with teams and trying to bring them in-house to Compound, correct?
So we have a recruiting team that I'll give them credit for most of the recruiting and bringing them in. I have a role in that for sure, but my main role is overseeing the team once they're in place, helping to recruit, obviously, and then the investment team kind of rolls up to me. Our internal tax team and our internal ops team all roll up to me as well. So I always say my job is to make sure everybody plays nice in the sandbox, and that we're putting a really integrated product together across all of those teams, so that we're serving our clients well.
Eric, for those financial advisors that might be listening to this, walk us through, who's the ideal financial advisor that you're looking for? And then also, do they keep their own RIA? Do they have to join your RIA? How does all that work?
We have a few different affiliation models. We prefer people to come in and be branded Compound advisors, and we have a W-2 model, a 1099 model, and then we have a few folks that use us as a TAMP, kind of just for our investments. So not our core business model, but a lot of different ways that you can come in and be an advisor at Compound. And we found that we've resonated well with advisors that have a bit of a book. They're probably younger. They're looking for that better technology platform. They're looking for a firm that's building for the future. We're aligned more. We give equity options to people that join, so that people that want to align with the company, want to build something, are here for all the right reasons and want to build a firm for the future. So I always use the example. There's mercenaries and missionaries in our industry, and some that are out for just where can I get the biggest paycheck, and then others that are, I want to build a firm the right way. I want to build something that I'm passionate and excited about. And we have a lot of advisors that are here because they want to build a firm. They want to be part of the technology transition. They want to build a firm that's different. And those are the firms, the advisors that have really been attracted to us and that we've really done well with.
So maybe another question I would have too, just kind of thinking about your unique placement in the market. Because, the M&A activity in this space has picked up tremendously over the last few years. So there's a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of firms that are looking to absorb smaller practices, not dissimilar to kind of how Compound is thinking. Obviously, you guys are more technology driven than maybe some of your peers in the space. But if we take a step back and really think about how much the role of an advisor has evolved over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, technology hopefully has become a pretty big part of that, just the lightening their load, thinking about where they add value. So if from your perspective or from Compound's perspective broadly, how do you think the role of an advisor has evolved, and how are you guys, meeting them where they're at today?
Yeah, that's, I mean, an interesting question because, I mean, the role of advisors changed a lot. I mean, even just in the last 10 years, but roll back in the last 20 and 30 years. I mean, it used to be, access to stocks and bonds, and then it was access to my allocation is better than your allocation, and then my alternatives are better than your alternatives, and then my overall integration is better than yours. And now we're on to kind of the whole next realm, which is, really planning based, and how much can you have on your platform, and how many different services can you provide me in a single service offering. So you look at the biggest players, the high towers and the WEGs, it's integrated tax, integrated estate planning, and integrated financial planning, all the things. So, we obviously do all of those things as well, but that's kind of I think that's the role of the advisor going forward, is being the quarterback that can coordinate your financial plan, your investment needs, tax planning, estate planning, all the things that, in one-stop shopping, in some sort of, bad analogy there, but which is similar to, roll back to kind of the big wirehouses at the one point where they had all the products and they kind of had one thing, everything in one shop, and the RA industry is kind of moving that way too, and where it's kind of almost being kind of the mega stores where you can kind of get everything in one shot.
Yeah, that definitely does seem, I mean, just anecdotally, what I hear, meeting with advisors on a weekly basis, is that consolidation, the one-stop shop. And I think that's important too, because it, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, it allows the advisor, if they have access to all these tools and support and resources, to focus on what's most important. And to be clear, I'm in an investment role. I always have been, so I am biased on this question. But I think a question that comes up often is like, is the investment part of the holistic planning that advisors are offering their clients, like, is the investment component of that commoditized now? Does it matter anymore? I mean, with the rise of passive, can you just set it, forget it? Like, I've always viewed the true value add of an advisor is the planning. It's the understanding, the relationship. And even though I am in investments, like, is that secondary to the other pieces? Like, what is your thought on that?
Yeah, I have both sides. So I think I'm a big proponent of active management on the investment management side, coming from the CFA world. At the same time, you go through the planning process. Sometimes the investment piece actually becomes kind of a secondary component, because there's life events. There's all these other things that become, kind of the primary drivers of why we're investing the way we're investing, which is kind of secondary to, I'd really like to be able to go out and do all these cool things with the portfolio, but that doesn't necessarily meet the client's best interest in their best need, based on their current life events and life circumstances. So you kind of, the role of the advisor is to really kind of sort through that, figure out what is the right answer for the client. Is it, eventually we'd really love to be able to go to invest in some of these more esoteric investments and private equity and really do some more active management things, but that's going to lock your money up for a little while. But given your life events and your life circumstances right now, that's not the right answer. We'll eventually get there once we get through X, Y, and Z, but that's where I think the role of the advisor is very, very important, is to be able to really look through that, because somebody might come in and sell the right investment. It might be a good investment, but it might not be the right fit given the client's circumstances at the right time. So that's where the value of the advisor really comes into play. So again, big proponent of active management. I think there's a big portion for that. Obviously, you can get passive. This is where the industry's really evolved. 20 years ago, there wasn't the ability to get beta in all these different places from all these different products in an ETF. So you really had to go to a hedge fund or something a little bit more esoteric to get that. Now you can get a lot of those things within different ETF wrappers or different more liquid wrappers, which obviously opens up a lot more opportunity to build some pretty interesting portfolios for people.
Maybe a just random thought that popped into my head is, with the rise of technology and the adoption of technology, I wonder, I don't have the answer. I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are, but are you seeing younger individuals or just the younger generation turn to financial planning as they're building their lives and they're, mid-career? I always think historically, the only people that had financial advisors were like people nearing retirement. They knew that big life event was coming. They're going to get their ducks in a row. But I think the benefit of bringing technology into this industry and the proliferation of product now and the access is like, are you actually seeing that result in a younger client base coming to Compound or coming, to advisors broadly?
Yes, I would say we've resonated very well with younger tech executives, especially as they're kind of going through pre-liquidity planning. You've seen all the big buyouts in the Bay Area and in Silicon Valley. So I would say we have picked up and done very well with a lot of those tech execs that are thinking through pre-liquidity planning, and it's all planning based. They don't have a lot of assets, so to speak, but they have a lot of complexity, and they're really thinking through, I'm going to have a pretty significant liquidity event at some point because we have all these ISOs, we have all these options, we have all these RSUs that are going to come due, and then all of a sudden you get a big takeout or a big offering that comes out, and all of a sudden those are worth a significant amount of money. So we have a lot of those folks that have resonated very well that we're doing a lot of pre-liquidity, pre-IPO planning for. And that's a result of being able to do that and leveraging the technology to be able to build those plans and show them a lot of scenarios. So I think that's, yes, in that regard. And then the other question we get a lot is AI going to take my job, or is it going to replace the financial advisors? And, I always tell them, I was like, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody that knows how to use AI well is going to take your job, because they can be a lot more efficient. You can do a lot with the AI tools that are available right now. So we're trying to integrate those across the board. Obviously it's never going to replace, the human interaction or the human judgment piece, but for process-driven things, man, it's so powerful to be able to use and create a lot of efficiencies throughout the process.
Maybe I'd ask too, thinking about, potential listeners, if there are people out there who are maybe not necessarily in this industry, but who might be those individuals. I'm sure there's just a sea of choices when you're thinking about, hey, like, I'm going to actually pull the trigger. I'm interested in, engaging with a financial advisor. Where do I start? What kind of questions do I ask? I'm sure you see that a lot secondhand, like through the advisors at Compound that you work with, but like, what are some of the questions that individuals can and should be asking their advisor if they want to be set up for success, if they want to be tapped into a firm that has resources and can support them? Because there's a lot of noise out there, I would assume.
Yes, and I'd say they should be asking what type of clients they work with. Have you seen these types of issues before? Do you work with other tech execs that have gone through these types of situations? So I think finding somebody that's familiar with your type of situation, I think, is important to have that. That level of expertise and somebody you're comfortable with. Ultimately, it comes down to the relationship. You want to be very comfortable with the person that is advising you on your financial planning and your investments. So it's the relationship of the advisor to the client is paramount, and we value that significantly at Compound. We never want to get in the way of that. We're just trying to make sure that we're building a good platform so the advisors are able to interact with their clients. But I think it's really, there's so much noise on the internet right now, and so many different things that people can sort through. So it's really trying to find somebody that can give you the clarity quickly and easily, and has the platform that can deliver that and be the financial quarterback for your life. Again, it's can you deliver the tax? Can you deliver the estate? Can you do all those things? And you need to find an advisor that can help you sort through all of that, because it becomes very complicated very quickly.
Yep.
Eric, can you touch on some of the investments at Compound and maybe kind of how that fits into this idea of building better portfolios?
Sure. Yeah. So we have a pretty robust platform, so I'm pretty happy with and proud of what we've been able to build here. So I use a crappy analogy. It's a bowling alley analogy, but it's basically, we have a really wide bowling lane, and if you want to roll one right down the middle, we have model portfolios. We have both active and passive portfolios that are in our models that can be catered to different risk levels. So those are pretty plain vanilla. We do have active management in there, or pure passive, just core, lowest fee possible, just to get exposure to the market. So those are kind of the plain vanilla, but then obviously we have a really wide lane with the bumpers are up, obviously, for compliance. We don't want anybody to get in trouble, and we got to have some compliance and regulatory things along the edges. But we have a really robust list of alternatives that we've curated. We also partner with other alternative platforms, so we can get access to interval funds and a lot of different things that are differentiated and not in the public markets. And then we do a lot of direct indexing and pretty much everything in between. So we can really build some really interesting custom portfolios for folks. As we want to make sure we're meeting people where they are, and they're not just getting a cookie cutter portfolio across the board. So looking at your financial plan, making sure we can build a portfolio that is catered specifically to your needs as you're trying to achieve your financial goals. So those are the types of portfolios that we're building. So the long-winded way of answering, of saying we do have model portfolios that we can use off the shelf if we want them. And then advisors have the flexibility to build customized portfolios using alternatives, using real estate, using direct indexing, as well as our compound models as well.
Yeah, I would say too, just what I've heard kind of secondhand is a lot of times when clients will go to their advisor and say that they're looking elsewhere, a lot of times it has to do with investment options. performance isn't generally why a client would fire an advisor. It's, communication and the relationship and expectations. But they're also speaking to their neighbor, and guess what? Their neighbor's advisor got them access to a real estate deal and got them access to private equity, and suddenly they feel like they're missing out. So I think, to your point, Eric, is it's having that menu of options so that you can meet each client where they're at, and you can provide that bespoke or custom solution based on their liquidity needs, their time horizon, their risk tolerance, whatever the objective may be. But, some of the smaller advisory firms, not to say they're doing anything wrong, but they typically just don't have the bandwidth or the resources to do all the due diligence and have access to these, special platforms and, less liquid opportunities. So I do think that that is something too, as individuals are seeking various advisory firms. If that is something you think you might want, think about the type of firm that you're going to partner with as well.
Yep, and I mean, we have clients across the spectrum too. I mean, we call ourselves digital family office. So we have a lot of family office based clients that are very large, and we want to be building very different, interesting portfolios for them because they have the liquidity and the assets to go build something pretty interesting. And then on the flip side of that is we have a lot of of the clients' kids that are a lot smaller accounts, and for them it's really about how do we build a diversified portfolio for a small number of assets, as efficiently as we can. So that's where the models come into play a lot. Just being able to get access to a diversified portfolio very cheaply and efficiently. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have clients with significant assets that we're doing a lot of direct deals and co-invests and more esoteric stuff on the alternative side, as well as customized separately managed account muni bonds and separately managed equity accounts and everything in between. So again, it's trying to find that balance of building a portfolio that's flexible enough to work with the ultra affluent client, as well as the kind of the mass affluent, the smaller clients and the small clients' kids and everything in between.
And so your advisors are based all over the country. Is that fair?
Yep. We're not in 50 states, but we are scattered pretty much from coast to coast and everything in between. So I'm currently in Iowa. We've got advisors in the Bay Area, New York, Chicago, Florida, parts in between, Denver, East Coast, West Coast, everything in between. So that keeps me on my toes, kind of traveling across the country to see the team and go see everybody.
Hence why Eric's in Iowa right now. But just thinking about kind of aspirations for Compound over the next several years, obviously growth is an aspiration, as it is for anyone in any industry. But do you guys have like specific targets? Are you guys trying to build out your advisor community in a certain state or area, or trying to pick up a new client base? Like, how are you guys thinking about growth and how you're going to attack that?
Yeah, it's more finding the right type of advisor versus the right location.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say we have very few office locations across the country. I'm currently in a WeWork, so we have a lot of WeWork locations where people can meet with clients and rent shared office space or conference rooms. But that's not necessarily a focus for us of having brick and mortar offices scattered across the country. It's really finding the right advisors. We found that most advisors want to meet with their clients in their home or in a coffee shop, or it's easy to get a conference room most places. So it's not a focus for us to say we need brick and mortar, lots of advisors in each location. It's more about let's make sure we find advisors that are aligned with our culture, our mission, and kind of go from there.
That's awesome. Josh, any other questions?
Yeah, I'm interested in any secular trends that you all are thinking about. So like one that I've heard thrown out there, and you already addressed the AI one, which is a question I was going to ask you. So thanks for addressing that. But as far as, I mean, in this industry, you seem to have seen over time fees, for example, compression, and you've seen that in both. You've seen it in a lot of public equities, public fixed income spaces, ETFs, mutual funds, whatever it may be. Do you think that there's going to be that trend with financial advisors, and how are you thinking about that?
Yes, I mean, you definitely hear a lot about that, and I always say in the absence of value, fees become a problem, and that fee compression becomes an issue. But as you've seen, pretty much everybody's trying to add those additional service lines. So I don't see the fee compression as much as I see some margin compression, because you have to offer those other services. You have to be able to offer tax. You have to be able to offer some estate. So it's all these different pieces that ultimately end up compressing your margin a little bit, especially if you don't have the size and scale. So that's where one of the reasons you're seeing all the M&A is that some of the smaller firms, you can't compete with that. So you either have to drop your fee or you have to be able to provide the services. So then that's kind of one of the reasons for a lot of these M&A and roll up. This is just, it's hard to compete with some of the firms that can offer all of those things and still have relatively lower fee in the grand scheme of things, because they have the size and scale to be able to offer the additional services. So I do see a little fee compression, but it's really on the margin compression side of, you have to offer the additional services and the different things to your clients to be able to service them, because they can get it at all these other places. So that ultimately results in a little bit of margin compression on the back end.
That's really interesting. And as somebody who has not been an advisor, that's something that I haven't necessarily thought of. I'm used to thinking in terms of fund fees, or, fees on ETFs. Yeah. And as you said, like, it's less about the fee reduction, more about the margin. I think that's really interesting. And for any advisors that are listening who are smaller, and it is a huge value add to be plugged into these firms that have all these resources for the reasons Eric just mentioned. And I would say too, it just seems in the last few years there's also been a shift at the fund fee level, where we started to see fees on mutual funds and ETFs start to pick back up. Some of that's related to the fact that the strategies that are coming to market are a little bit more alternative or more active. But I think it gives us hope in this industry, that we're not going to go out of business because fees aren't entirely going to zero. It just will be AI that puts us out of business, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about that. I think it's more of a tool.
Yeah.
But I will throw it right back on the active management side. You're seeing a lot of the M&A on the fund families as well. Mm-hmm. So there's just not as many options and not as many providers on the active side as well. It's been the big shift to passive. So I almost expect the active management and the active managers to have a little bit more of a their day in the sun again, as all the passive things kind of become the norm, and now it's like there's just nobody that does it anymore. Yeah. So if you want to find the more differentiated things, the fees are going to go back up because there's just not as many out there anymore.
Yep.
Maybe if you could share with us some of the best advice you've ever received, or somebody in your career that really helped you. I'd love to hear something along those lines.
Yeah, the best advice I got in this industry was never burn a bridge, because you never know when you're going to have to go back across it. Because again, back to as small a world as this is, of sitting in New York City having lunch and Paisley walks in right across this. You never know when you're going to have to go back, and it is, as big of an industry finance is, it is a very small community, and you run into the same people over and over again. And it means people move around different firms, different jobs, but it's a lot of the same folks that you run into as you get into this community. So yeah, the best advice is try to make friends in the industry. Don't make very many enemies, because you're always going to run across, you're going to keep running across the same people over and over again.
Yeah. I have two stories actually. So like a couple hours ago, I went to meet someone for coffee down the street at a hotel. It's at a Marriott they were staying at, and was in the lobby and ran into my old manager from like 10 years ago. And it's like, again, just very small world. Yep. But also kind of to your point on, you never know, like, when you're going to have to go back across that bridge. I think it also works the other way, in that people will ask you for help, and the time that you give them along the way, there's been so many instances where that then pays dividends for me 5-10 years later, where that individual, maybe at the time they were very junior and you helped them out, now all of a sudden they work at a firm, and you want to get access to that firm or that organization for whatever reason, and they're your entry point. And so I think, again, like, offering your time and expertise and really connecting with people, even if it seems like you're only doing someone a favor at that point in time, there's been so many instances where you realize, oh, that was a favor for me, I just didn't know it at the time.
Yep, and it has to be genuine too. Yeah. It can't come from a selfish place of, if I help you, you're going to help me. It's just, be nice to everybody, because you just never know when you're going to need a favor coming down the road. Things happen. You might need a career move. You might need a recommendation. You might need an in at a firm. So yeah, my advice is always just be nice to everybody. Try to make as many friends in the industry as you can. And it pays dividends down the road. Yeah. I mean, again, if you use two of my best friends in the industry, all coming from the CFA community. So it's like, you don't get that if you're not out there trying to make friends and exactly. Just meeting the people and building your network.
I love that. Question before we adjourn: if there are advisors who are not currently with Compound that are listening to this and they're like, I'd like more information, what is the best way to get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, you can always reach out to me. Compoundplanning.com is our website, but follow me on LinkedIn, ping me on LinkedIn, eric.flynn@compoundplanning.com. Happy to chat with anybody. Just give them career advice, mentorship, thoughts on the industry, happy to talk to just about anybody. So
Awesome.
that's best ways to track me down.
We appreciate that. Anything else, Josh, before we close up?
No, thank you, Eric, so much. Oh, I guess maybe one thing I'll add is there's a great book. I don't know if either of you have read it, Give and Take by Adam Grant, that kind of goes into that concept that we were just talking about, this idea of kind of, giving and taking. And anyway, it's a really good read if you haven't read it.
Yeah, always love book recommendations.
Yeah, we're going to turn this into a book club soon. Bring your wine and your cheese next time. Awesome.
I'm
Well,
all for it.
Thank you, Eric, again. Thanks for joining us while you're on the road. I know that you're super busy. We really appreciate it. For everyone listening, thanks for tuning in to episode 1 of Building Better Portfolios, and we will see you guys next time.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and do not reflect the views, opinions, or policies of any current or former employer, affiliated firm, or client. The content is provided for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. Nothing discussed constitutes a recommendation to buy or sell any securities or investment products. Listeners should conduct their own research or consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. The hosts are speaking solely in their personal capacities, and the podcast is not affiliated with, sponsored by, or endorsed by any firm or organization with which they may be associated.